People are already saying the raid will not fail in the chat.
The raid will not fail.
Yeah.
That might be my bad. The way that I titled it was a bit of a was meant to be a joke. And I think
someone said maybe she forgot.
No.
You're only a minute late.
Yeah,
that's not bad at all. Yeah.
Hey, we are live, okay. Hello, my nakamatachi. Yeah, we're live. Hello, my nakamatachi. This is JoyGirl. We're back with another Let's Talk Wano episode, and we've got Mr Morj here with us. Hi, Mr Morj.
What's going on, everyone?
And everyone, yes, is it on? Is it not on for you?
It's on for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, I can see it as well. All right, awesome. People saying that maybe she forgot or late the arrival. I think this is the earliest I've been.
Yeah, I'm surprised. People in this chat, you don't know how good you got it. If you've ever been to one of my streams, you're going to be waiting a long, long time. I usually show up 20, 30 minutes late. She's like a minute late and people are already like, oh, maybe she forgot.
Yeah. I mean, even during, just in streams when we're doing the reaction stream, sometimes I'm later than this. I think this is the earliest.
Oh, shoot. I think I opened up double audio.
Okay, yep, I think.
Doing this.
Oh,
sorry.
That's alright.
I think I screwed up your audio.
That's okay. I think it's because...
What did I do? Sorry, I'm gonna close this.
Maybe just turn the YouTube on mute. I think as long as you turn the YouTube on mute, you should be fine. So you can still have it up. Just turn that on mute and it should be fine. All right, this is a... I'm glad that we're having tech issues now, right at the beginning. We were having... when I first told the Joy Flick that we were gonna have you on, there were a lot of jokes about, is our stream gonna end in failure? Apparently you've got internet issues, I've got camera issues. Between the both of us, apparently tech-wise, we're not the greatest. So I'm glad we're getting all of this now. Yeah.
That's all we can do. We can't prove them wrong.
Yep. And yeah, so thanks so much for joining us, Mr. Morj. And I have to say this, I told you this before we went live. I was gonna joke and say that we had Ohara doing a collab with us about a month ago, a little over a month ago. And when...
I know Ohara, he's a good guy.
Yeah, yes. Well, we all know that you do know Ohara because a lot of the questions was, when is the Wano report coming back? And Ohara said that it's because you were busy. And then, so I don't know, because you're coming here for our collab. So I was going to say that something's not adding up because I got both of you to come onto JoyGirl for a Let's Talk Wano episode, which means that, I don't know, it's a bit suspicious.
You asked me a month in advance. So if you ask me like a month in advance, can you do this specific date? Yes, I can make time. But for Wano reports, here's how it usually goes. So I'll message Ohara. Keep in mind, we're on two totally different sides of the globe, right? So two totally different time zones. So I'll message Ohara, hey, what's up, man? He'll respond like 15, 16 hours later. Yo, bro, here's how it's going or whatever. I'm like, hey, we should do a Wano report soon. Or maybe he says we should do a Wano report soon. And then we kind of bounce back and forth, responding to each other every 2 days. And then like, maybe it's Saturday morning or something. I'll be like, hey, how about now? And then like the next day for me, like Sunday mid-afternoon, he's like, how about now? And we just keep passing each other by like that. In general, it's just hard for me the last 2 months. Again, I was telling you I moved recently and I started a new channel. And that's just hard. So like, I haven't gotten the time to do collabs in general. And me and Ohara know each other so well at this point. But like, we don't need to do a Wano report just to catch up. Because when we're doing a Wano report, we're doing it to, catch up on One Piece. But like, the last time I got on a call with him, which was not that long ago, maybe like 2 weeks ago, I got on a call with him. And yeah, we just talked about like how we're both doing right now, what we're both doing YouTube-wise, how we're catching up and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, the Wano report, I think that's more for the fans. I think Ohara and I don't need it to just like catch up and stay in touch. But we should get back into that, when things clear up.
Oh, well, I mean, I think that's great. That's really sweet. You guys are still like catching up. You're still like talking constantly. It's just that it's just not the Wano report. But that's great. I mean,
I don't know what he told you. If he made me out to be like,
he did say that it was
skipping these Wano reports. But it's two ends of this. There's two sides to this. All right, this is my side of the story.
He did say that it was you.
It's not easy.
He said that it was you. I mean, but you can
right,
you can take that up with him. Well, actually, you can talk that about him. Talk that about with him in the next Wano report if you guys get one on board, because he said that the next time you guys do a Wano report, he said that I could be invited. Not necessarily the next time, but you know, I'll be in a future Wano report. So we'll see how it goes with 3 different time zones.
Let me let you know. Okay, so this is kind of this is not to make it sound bad or anything like that, but for a long time, O'Hara and I would throw out like Wano report invitations very freely, in the sense that like if we just talk to some like I don't know how to explain this, but basically there's a list maybe like 20 people deep of people who've been like, hey, you're definitely on the next Wano report. So I can't say for O'Hara's end, but I don't know how strong that invite is. We'll get you in. We'll get you in.
After 20 people, so once Wano finishes, it seems like. Once we go through 20 people on the list, once you guys get your Wano report back up, so... We
have to do one with me and O'Hara first, so we have to do one of those, so, and then we can get in the train of like, okay, let's get everybody back in.
I'm gonna, you know what, I'm gonna blame O'Hara about this. It seems like he lied about you, he lied about me, so we're gonna blame O'Hara.
Yeah, O'Hara's not here. It's easy to blame him because he's just not here. He can't defend himself, so we'll just say that.
Exactly. All right, well, thanks anyways. I was just joking anyways, but thanks so much for coming on board. I'm so glad that you're able to join us even when you're so busy. Just to see, I just saw that there were super chats even before we came on stream, so thanks so much to Levi, who I think might have already left, but thanks for the super chat. Hope you have a great dinner and maybe you can catch the tail end. I should also actually tell you guys, usually the Joy Fleet, you're used to having like a stream go on for about 1.5 to 2 hours. We are going to cut it to 1 hour today, so we're going to cap it to 1 hour. So if you have burning questions, make sure to get it in within the hour. And also we had some super chats already. I can see Brandon King saying bad Wi-Fi and bad battery combined, but we're gonna prove you wrong. We're gonna prove you wrong. We're going to use this stream to show that we can actually succeed in our streams. And also, this isn't a super chat, but I know that the Joy Fleet's waiting on this. So usually in our chapter reviews, I've been doing a Discord artwork competition, and so members of the Joy Fleet submit an artwork based on a theme that I set. And then we vote on it. So some of the roles that we have in our Discord server can vote on it, and then they feature it as part of the JoyGirl review. Now, I haven't set a theme yet for this next artwork competition, and they suggested that you set the theme for us. So the only basis is that it has to be One Piece related, and they asked whether I could ask you to set a theme for our next artwork competition. And
okay. So I can just ask anything, and then people have to draw that.
Yeah, people have to draw that, and then we'll vote on it. So, for example, the last, if I was to give you an example, I've been sort of setting themes based on like whoever the chapter MVPs were. Like the last one was a Chibi Yamato. The one before that was Momonosuke as a human. If you might have seen it actually floating around, because Pukiaki, the winner of that week, did the Momonosuke inspired, the Momonosuke as Whitebeard's son rather than Oden's son. You might have seen it. I'm not too sure if you have, because it went quite viral on like Twitter and Reddit, I think. But that was based off Pukiaki's story. I think
just not known the story.
Yeah. So it's up to you. So whatever it just has to be based on One Piece.
Okay, then, all right. The smart play here is, okay, I know the smart play here. All right. An image of Kaido defeating Luffy. And because this way I can use it, once the winner is selected, I can use that for a thumbnail. So Kaido defeating Luffy and some background characters being surprised. Okay. I think that's a great idea.
All right.
Yeah, do that. That's the long-term business plan decision.
Okay. That's a great way to start our stream, with an agenda that we both sort of agree on. So what are the agendas? And you know what? I'm not gonna lie. When we mentioned that we were gonna let you choose a theme, that was one of the two themes that people expected you to ask to draw. It was either going to be that.
No, that's so predictable. All right. What was the other theme?
The other one was Jinbei. Apparently Jinbei is your favorite straw hat?
Oh, no, that's a joke. Jinbei is actually my least favorite Straw Hat.
Jinbei's
But
your least-
recently, I don't know if you saw this. I don't know if you saw this in some SPS recently. You know how Oda says that Luffy is Brazilian. If they were in real world nationalities, Luffy's Brazilian, Usopp's from Africa, Zoro's from Japan, things like that. So Oda recently mentioned that Jinbei would be from India, which I don't think anyone was expecting. But you know, that's the only Indian representation I have in the series, Indy Rouge. But the only Indian representation I have in the Straw Hats. So the joke that for me, for a long time, I was saying Jinbei was my least favorite Straw Hat. Then at some point, Oda drops that, like, Jinbei, his nationality would be Indian. So now I've been pivoting to saying, well, I guess that makes Jinbei my favorite Straw Hat now, even though people know that's not how I feel deep down.
Okay. Well, those were the two I'm good at.
If people want to draw that, then they're free to draw that.
Maybe they could draw, you know what, they could have Jinbei as one of the people, like, reacting, right?
Sorry?
They could have Jinbei as one of the characters reacting.
Definitely, yeah, then that's a 2 for 1.
Exactly.
You
get a double
concepts
deal.
in there.
Exactly. And we had another, so I told you that we were gonna keep that raid will fail up to the end of the stream, and we're already opening it with it.
Yeah, you asked what concept I would have, and you already predicted, everybody already knew what I was going to pick, so.
We're getting it nice and early. We had another super chat. What do you think of Nami being more popular than Sanji from Ninabot? Thanks so much, Ninabot. I've answered this already, so I might let you, I think I've shared my thoughts on this already, so I could let you take the question if you have any thoughts on it.
Yeah, so it's tricky. I do have a lot, so it's funny that, wait, it's from Ninabot? Ninabot?
Yeah. Ninabot? Okay, so
what's Ninabot doing here too? What's Shinho want? All these people and, what?
Yeah.
Corporate? Sorry, I'll try and keep, okay. All these people, this is what you guys do when you're not in my streams? Okay, that's cool. Anyway, oh, you didn't even mod Shinho Wong.
Chin said that they
here.
didn't want
That's
a mod.
weird.
Chin said they don't want to be a mod.
Don't want to be a mod here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Apparently being a mod on your channel has
okay.
traumatized them.
I feel good seeing all these cocky people without blue wrenches in this chat. Because they go in my chat and they run rampant and do whatever they want. Anyway, the question being Nami being third, right? So I'm surprised that was brought up, just coincidence, because I have a very big video coming out Friday. I'm actually about to record it after this. Talking about Luffy, Zoro, and Nami.
Okay.
So back at the start of the series, Oda said that those 3 characters are the triggers of One Piece. And a lot of people seem to feel like that's no longer the case. The cast of characters is obviously expanded. It's the full Straw Hats at this point, right? Everybody's a main character. But the video that I'm dropping Friday kind of delves into the idea that no, if you look very carefully over the course of the entire series, you can see that Oda, it's become more subtle, but Oda still has a very strong preference for the trio of Luffy, Zoro, and Nami. I think most people obviously understand Luffy is the most popular main character, right? Most people also are kind of behind the idea that, like, yeah, Zoro probably gets the second most focus in the series, but Nami actually definitively gets the third most focus in the series. And I can understand why Nami ended up ahead of Sanji in the final global popularity poll, because those are simply the 3 most prominent characters throughout the series. A lot of people don't know this, but Nami has the second most panel time in all of One Piece. In all of One Piece, Nami has the second most panel time, and it's like by a large margin. She's literally the second most prominent character in the story. So, you know, I think in our hardcore fan base of people that like argue on Twitter, YouTube, and stuff like that, it can feel like Sanji is the third most discussed character. And I think that's largely because Sanji, he gets in the most battles, he has the most action-oriented impact in the story, third most, right? He's part of the monster trio or whatever. But like, Nami is the third most prominent character. And that's sort of just the reality of it, that she gets the third most focus, second most in terms of panel time over the course of the story. That's gonna influence what casual fans end up voting for. Because, you know, 3 characters get more focus over the course of the story. If you do a popularity poll at the end of it, those 3 characters will probably be the top 3 most popular characters. So that's the way I look at it. It was surprising to see that she came in third, but at the same time, not surprising. And yeah, the video I dropped Friday will go like way more in depth into it.
Okay, that's really interesting. I mean, like, for you to be able to like count the manga panels as well. And
No,
that's...
I didn't count it.
Okay.
I didn't count it. I should clarify here. There's people on Reddit that do this sort of thing, and you can find those.
Okay,
I was surprised when I saw it as well. I would never go through and literally count manga panels to try and prove a point. But I was happy to see that other people have done it, and like, you can easily find those posts of like who has the most panel time throughout the story.
Yeah, yeah.
But anyway, keep going.
No, that's great. I mean, well, I said. Well, actually, because I was going to ask you, you know, how many times have you reread One Piece to be able to like actually count how many times Nami comes on? But I was also just interested to know, like, were you able to see whether there's a like clear difference between, say, for example, like before like the difference between pre-time skip and post-time skip? I imagine like the focus on Nami has definitely changed since post-time skip, especially in like the recent arcs. And you haven't noticed like there's been a difference because of that at all? Or the...
So I think that if you're getting at that pre-time skip, there was more Nami focus. There was. And pre-time skip, Oda did go back to that core trio of Luffy, Zoro, Nami more frequently. Post-time skip, we've got so many characters. It's not even just more Straw Hats.
Yeah.
So many characters in general, right? We've got everybody.
Exactly.
Look at how big the recent color spread was, right? That just goes to show how many characters are regularly prominent in One Piece. So that's why it's more subtle. But you can go back to some simple things. So for example, and I don't want to get too much into that video that's coming out Friday, but for example, the current saga that we started with, so the Versus 4 Emperor saga. So it starts with Zo, then Whole Cake Island, then Wano, and Wano seems to be the culmination of this saga. So with this arc, what Oda likes to do very often is begin arcs with like the drama of the arc being debated between Luffy, Zoro, and Nami. And that kind of sparks the direction the rest of the arc goes. So if you go back to Zo, the plot of this whole storyline really begins with Luffy, Zoro, and Nami having one of those classic debates. All the other Straw Hats are mostly quiet. They're having one of these debates about what they should do about Sanji. Right? And it's always Nami, throughout the story, Nami's always offering one end of the spectrum of what they should do, and Zoro's offering the other. And Oda kind of bounces back and forth between like, okay, he's going to portray Zoro in the right in this situation, or Nami in the right in this situation. The situation Nami was pushing for, we should go help Sanji. Zoro was saying, no, we shouldn't. This time, Oda had Luffy side with Nami. Whereas in the past, like the Usopp situation, Luffy sided with Zoro. So it balances out who's portrayed as right in the moment. And then if you look at the two arcs after that, so Whole Cake Island and Wano, Oda liked to go back to the kind of basics with both those arcs, because Whole Cake Island, was Sanji's arc, but the storyline goes back to the bare bones roots of being a Luffy-Nami adventure for the start of it. Similar to how Wano goes back to being a Luffy-Zoro adventure for the start of it. So you still see the traces of that happening, where Oda sometimes just likes to clear out the rest of the Straw Hats and just have Luffy with Zoro, or Luffy with Nami, or Luffy with the two of them. So, I mean, that's basically it. I do expect Nami to have another arc to herself down the line, because I mentioned before, like, I think Wano is Zoro's arc, Sanji was Whole Cake Island is Sanji's arc, I think Elbaf will be Usopp's arc. I think the journey to Raft Tail, which is a navigator's challenge, will be Nami's arc. So that's basically it.
That's cool. Like, that's a really great observation. I've always actually thought that, like, if anything, like Sanji is actually sort of like, for me, I've sort of read it as like Sanji likes to, it seems to like trigger a lot of like the drama or the events. For example, like the fact that we're in Wano right now, I've always said that it's actually because, you know, it was Sanji who like picked up Kinemon's head and was the one, and like if that didn't happen, we wouldn't actually be at Wano at the moment. But that's also really another like really interesting way to put it, like to look at it as well. So I like that.
Yeah, I mean, all the Straw Hats are very important.
Yeah,
to be
for
clear.
sure.
And I think especially the East Blue Five are very, very important. And Oda likes them for different. Oda likes them for different things.
And I guess like Raftel being Nami's arc also makes a lot of sense as well with the idea of like treasure. You know, that fits with Nami very thematically. So I like that being her arc quite a bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's what she's always been about. I mean, she's grown out of that to a degree, but it's still, I think Oda likes the treasure hunting arcs for Nami. For sure.
Exactly. That's cool. I mean, well, thanks for that question, Nina Bot. Wasn't something that I was expecting to talk about, but because we were, and I was gonna say, so like I said, so we were gonna talk about sort of the agendas towards the tail end. We were gonna talk about recent Wano events, and so I just wanted to ask you, like, you know, just a super general like question is like, how do you feel about like the recent, what we've been getting recently at Wano, like the recent chapters, you know, the recent developments? What are your general sort of sentiments around it?
this like prediction based or like or dislike based? Like, what sentiments are you saying? Like, do I like it, dislike it? How do I feel?
Yeah, exactly. All of it. So, you know, if there are...
Okay.
If there are things that you didn't like so much, like for example, like, you know, the idea of Momonosuke getting matured through the Juku Juku no Mi, something that we talked about, I think during the Reverie or the pre-Reverie, and, you know, a lot of people had different thoughts about whether they like it, and then we obviously saw it happen, we obviously got it. Like, how did you feel about it? Did you like that that's something that we got? Were you thinking that was likely?
I did think that, because I had a theory video that I dropped 3 years ago that was Momo aging up. So if you're in chat, don't leave the stream, but after the stream, go check it out. There's a theory video, Momo, adult Momo, are we gonna see aged up Momonosuke and Wano? So you can go see that. People don't realize that, like, at the very least, the Momonosuke thing, that was a bit of a discussion going around towards the start of Wano, I guess, whether or not he was going to be aged up. And then, like, a lot of people, myself included, started to kind of drop that idea. So, like you mentioned, we talked about it a bit at the Reverie. Even I, by the time of the Reverie, was like, I don't know if we're going to get Momo aged up. Okay. So I like it.
Oh, sorry, the audio just cut off for a bit, but you can continue.
Okay, okay. No, I like, okay, so if you're talking about Momo being aged up, I like it partly because it opens up the door to how Momo can impact the rest of the story. I would not like it if it allows him to be just automatically really, really strong. I don't get the sense that's going to be the case. Because I do feel like a lot of Momo's, I feel like Momo shouldn't have to be like Oden. And I feel like that's been a lot of the, you know, the development around his character. I feel like he shouldn't have to be a carbon copy of Oden to be able to fill his father's shoes, right? So I do feel like with Momonosuke, one of the big places that he can stand out from Oden is really being a figurehead or a leader for his people to get them rise to an occasion, which Oden never did. So Oden's big thing was that Oden was very strong, but that alone did not take down Kaido. So I do look forward to the idea that Momo will be able to wield, like, you know, Ame no Habakiri, that he would be able to fight, and I do hope to see him be more, like, physically active and capable. Even, I'm sure you've heard, like, the theory of Momo holding up the island, Onigashima, and everything like that. So I like those ideas that in adult form, Momo can be more of a physical factor and actually fight, carry the island, things like that. But I definitely hope that it does not head in the direction, it's like a tight thread, I hope it doesn't head in the direction where, you know, Momonosuke is now able to beat Kaido or kill Kaido or something along those lines. I do still hope that his development continues in the direction of being a strong leader for his people.
Yeah.
But in general, the stuff how I feel about Wano in general so far, since that was very specific and I talked a long time about that. In general, with Wano, and this is why I'm terrible for One Piece discussions right now, because I'm literally not on the same page as most other people. So everybody else is reading the arc with the belief that this is the final battle, so everyone's viewing it through that lens. I'm still, whether or not I end up being wrong, I'm just explaining how I think right now. I still view it as, okay, they're going to lose here, so everything I view as happening is I'm viewing it through the lens of, okay, so this is a setup for them to lose, but I'm keeping track of, like, okay, what does this mean for the story going forward, and how would I enjoy it in the broad context of the story? So I think I'm liking most of the stuff that's happening in Wano so far, in the context of me thinking that they don't actually win here.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think that makes sense. I mean, if we were to go back to, like, the Momo bit, I agree with you that I'm not for Momonosuke beating Kaido as well. I didn't actually realize that that's something that people, like, really strongly believe in. I think the maturity point was more for, like, for other purposes, like him lifting Onigashima, for example. That's something that I made a theory video about, like, months ago as well. So it's, you know, I think having
I'm sure you've heard of this theory that you already put out a theory.
No, that's all right. I mean, I think it's around everywhere now. I think the moment we saw, I think for me, the moment we saw Kaido, you know, announce his, like, Onigashima plan, we saw Onigashima getting lifted, I was like, okay, well, there's an obvious link with the Devil Fruits with Momo. I think that's definitely going to happen with something that's going to be a plotline that happens, you know, down the road for Momonosuke, and I think it's reasonable that a lot of people would have thought that too. I think in saying that, I think there will be maybe a moment that like we could see Momonosuke against Kaido, but I don't think it's gonna be like him necessarily beating Kaido. I think it's just, I think that's more something that we'll see as a development of Momo actually like facing his fears. Really like the thing that the last chapter, you know, was interesting for me was his, you know, the I guess the mental development and his like the development of his courage that we saw throughout the chapter. So I think that was the more interesting thing. I guess like the symbolism as well of going through the symbolism of him going through the floor. And I'll bring this up now because I can see Ninobot, thanks for your super chat as well. Again, we got a super chat from Ninobot that said, I think Wano has the worst pacing in the whole series. So many pages of Momo crashing into things in the latest chapter. I feel like we go nowhere every week. And I would actually say that I quite really liked the pages. I liked the panels of seeing like Momonosuke going through the floors, like crashing through the walls, because I thought that was very symbolic in the sense that he's literally like building up his courage, like going up the building by like, and actually also, you know, building up his courage at the same time, you know, going floor by floor each time. And the whole time, you know, he's flying with his eyes closed, you know, he's crashing into things. And the moment that, you know, Luffy said Kaido, that's when he like opened his eyes. So I actually quite like, I actually didn't mind that. And I think, so I don't know whether you think so too. Like for you, if you're saying that, you know, you're watching the things go by, like with that mindset of, you know, this is all going to, you know, result in their loss at some point. Do you feel like it's taking a long time as well, that it's dragging till we get to that point?
So if we talk about that specific sequence of, you know, Momo crashing through floors and everything like that, I would agree. I think that Wano, Onigashima in general, there's a lot going on, so it can feel slow, I guess, but at the same time, it's like fast-paced because Oda also tries to fit as much in as he can per chapter. So I actually really like the fact, it felt a little more old school, the fact that Oda did take the time to, you know, draw a sequence of Momonosuke crashing through floors and everything like that. Because you could easily imagine, with the way a lot of the other Onigashima chapters have gone, Oda just drawing like, I don't know, like 2 panels of it or something like that, and then they're up on the top floor. So I agree with you. I do like the fact that Oda is taking his time for certain things that do feel, I guess, just important for slowing things down, important for the character moment, and just like important for it not feeling like we're just reading a montage of events, which I think some chapters of Onigashima can feel like, where it's, again, really, really going by fast. We're just getting snippets of stuff happening here and there. So I like that. And it was important too. It was everyone in the Alliance seeing Luffy, like even just from the Alliance perspective, everyone in the Alliance seeing Luffy come back. So I'm glad that Oda slowed things down for that. I think that even if the raid fails, etc. here, the fact that we've been in Onigashima for so long is perfectly fine, because you do need a good amount of time to set up, you know, just dramatic pieces and like character threads and things that are going to be important going forward. I think in general, I might be wrong, but I've heard Kabuki Plays Act 3 is supposed to be the longest anyway. That's not too bad if, you know, this act ends up being the longest act of the entire story, as long as Oda gets everything set up that he needs to set up. So introducing Yamato, aging up Momo, introducing Zoro's background, stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess, yeah, I think so too. I think I read that as well, that Act 3 is supposed to be the longest. And now that you bring up like Yamato, what are your thoughts on Yamato as a, you know, for example, like Yamato as a Straw Hat? Are you on board with that very popular idea? How are you liking Yamato's development? Because
then that
will that affect your answer?
I don't want to be like harsh on Yamato if someone's like a hardcore Yamato fan. So
I mean, I like Yamato. I mean, as a character, I like Yamato. If we're assessing Yamato being a Straw Hat, I sort of go between. I'm sort of on the fence with that one. When we saw Yamato's Devil Fruit, that's when I was like, I think it's more likely that Yamato's actually going to stay behind at Wano, the idea of being a guardian deity. But then like the last chapter, I'm sort of now also going like, oh, actually, you know, it really would be, I think it is actually plausible that Yamato is a Straw Hat. For example, like, you know, seeing Yamato's like reaction phase to seeing Luffy, I thought that was great. Even seeing Luffy also being like the same very like joyful, very same, you know, excited facial expression. It really reminded me of sort of like a scene when we see the Straw Hats reunite and, you know, they're really happy to see each other, you know, when they saw Jinbei again. Sort of like reminds me of those sort of moments, and I got that sort of vibe, which makes me think that, you know, it is actually possible that we could see Yamato become a Straw Hat, but I don't know. It's I go, like I said, I sort of go between.
I personally think that there's, for me at least, there's a lot of work that would have to happen with Yamato's character for her to get to, you know, Straw Hat material, I guess you could say. I think that for me, every single time Yamato expresses from her introduction that she is going to go set sail with the Straw Hats, and, you know, leave Wano, set sail with the Straw Hats, I think every single time she says that has made me feel that that's not what's going to happen to her in the story. I just think that's, I don't know, it just feels way too blunt and simple from Oda's end. It feels more like, you know, if you're going to write the arc for the character, it would be having her realize, because, you know, Yamato's starting from like a really, really basic mentality, obviously, of like, well, I saw what Oden was as a kid, I just want to be like Oden, and a lot of it seems to be tied, at least we learned from the last chapter, to the feeling that she wants to be, she wants to get away from the sense that, like, you know, she's got the blood of an Oni, she wants to be loved by people similar to Oden, something along those lines. So I feel like a lot of her motivations are fairly shallow or need to be challenged or something along those lines as the arc progresses. So I feel like that's why, and the point that you brought up, which is that, you know, her devil fruit is literally a guardian deity zone. To me, that makes a lot of sense. That's another good point in the favor of, you know, maybe her destiny is to realize, kind of like open up her eyes to the idea that just because Oden did XYZ doesn't mean she needs to be a carbon copy of that, being herself and realizing that she has greater value protecting Wano, which Oden himself, he had to come to that realization when he confronted Orochi the final time, which was, oh, I realize now I should have stayed behind and taken the throne rather than let you take it, basically. So that's my view of the character.
Yeah, I agree. And
I don't think he's joining.
I mean, I think so too. Like, I think at this point, we would definitely have to see more of Yamato. I can see Ryo and Pomel both agreeing with you. And I think the thing that I've always wanted, like I've always said, is obviously Yamato, you know, as they are now, you know, wanting to be Oden rather than chasing their own goals. I think the question I've always said is, like, once we see Yamato's character like fully developed and we see them actually like choosing to be their own person and all that, we know that Oden wanted to go to sea, but what does Yamato want as Yamato rather than Yamato as Oden? And I think that's what we're waiting for.
That's a very good way of putting it.
Yeah, for sure. The other question that I had was, I think I missed it'll get to me because I just realized that I've missed the super chat. Mick Wingsy Nuts asked, thanks for the super chat, is Oden part of Whitebeard or Roger's crew? And I guess it's a good time to ask that now whilst we're talking about Oden. So I'll go first.
I put Oden, I put Oden in Whitebeard's crew because Whitebeard gave him the 2nd Division commander spot, right? So it's more like official stamp in that original 2nd Division commander.
Okay.
Whereas with Roger, I felt like it was a bit more of a tag along. You know, he hopped on their ship for a while to enjoy the ride.
That's really interesting. That's interesting you say that, because I was actually going to go the reverse, and I was going to say maybe more Rogers, because it seemed like they have a more like similar goal together. You know, the Oden's a character that wanted to go see the world. You know, he wanted to explore and wanted to experience everything, which is a lot more like, I think, Roger, them wanting to find out like the history and like, wanting to really expand their horizons. Whereas Whitebeard's, is a much more like grounded dream of just like wanting a family. But I do see what you mean about how Oden fit into the crew as well.
That's true. So Oden and Roger definitely more similar. I guess Oden and Whitebeard, because he was his first. Yeah. That's his first captain, basically. And he gave him an official position.
Yeah.
So I think Oden definitely had a better time on Roger's ship. Yeah. That's probably the case.
They could be part of both. And also, the thing about Yamato.
What was the gar?
What was that? Sorry.
I just saw the
Suga, we got.
Sorry, I'm just seeing familiar faces. I'm just like, oh man, everybody just.
So I think what
Everybody
happened was
includes
I did apologize to you about this before, because I know what happened was one time, I think it was like when I first started streaming, and I was gonna have a discussion stream, which wasn't something that I used to do, and I saw that you were having one just before I was about to start mine. So I went in for a bit, and I was chatting to people, and then when I left, I saw familiar names that were chatting along with me during your stream came to my stream later. And so maybe
So you
that's
had
how
the same experience.
Yeah.
Of like, well, what's everyone doing here?
Yeah,
in this
and I was,
stream?
I had to
Must be
ask
nice.
her. That's what I said. I was like, what did you guys do? Did you just abandon ship? And they all said that you'll understand, so. But
Do
luckily
we
we're
stream
having
at the same times? Do we stream at the same time? I stream normally my Mondays. I don't know what the conversion is. I stream normally my Mondays at like 8 EST, something like that. 7, 8 EST, something like that. Do we just stream at the same times every time?
not exactly the same time. I realized that that's what was happening because people kept commenting that during the stream that Morj is going on at the same time. So I usually do it around the same, maybe about an hour or two earlier than yours. So I think there's a tiny bit of an overlap. But we got one mouse.
Sorry if I forced you to bump. Or
No,
take
that's right.
your
It works.
stuff a
It
little
works
bit
for
in
me
one
as well
direction.
because I've actually started. My uni schedule changed anyway, so I was a new semester, so it ended up working out better. But we've got people. So Walmouse says, "Sorry, Morj, they decided to join the Joy Fleet." So that's Walmouse.
So many people jumping ship
Yeah.
for the Joy Fleet. That's nice. Thanks, guys.
And another thing that about
Wait, I'm a mod here now, right? You told me I'm a mod here?
You are,
I'm
yeah.
a mod? Oh, wait, I'm logged in the wrong channel. Test it real quick.
Is it not working?
Oh, yeah, what's the next? Nah, I'm logged in on the wrong channel.
Okay, all right, makes sense.
I'm logged in, I did the new channel, movie channel. I gotta change. All right, let me test this. I'm on. Shy Guy Pro says, JoyGirl is way nicer to us. Shy Guy Pro, I've never seen you in one of my streams, so how would you know that? I'm not a mod. You told me I'm a mod in this channel.
I did. I modded you. Okay, I
just
didn't.
tested it.
That's all right.
I'm not a mod.
That's my bad. I don't know why that is. This isn't. Maybe it's just payback. It's payback for you. Taking away my mod status.
No. I swear, I never took a. I'm actually glad it happened to you as well, because the week before that, Randy Troy had come into my chat, right? And he started talking. I was like, that's not the real Randy Troy, because he doesn't have a blue wrench. And then he said some things that I knew that only the real Randy Troy would say. So I was like, okay, this is the real Randy Troy. I don't know what happened to his wrench. So I remodded him. So I was like, that's absolutely bizarre. How did that happen? There's no way that I intentionally went subconsciously and unmodded Randy. And then you came in the chat later on and you also didn't have a wrench. So I was like, okay, it's fine. It's just a glitch.
Yeah.
Somehow random people have been unmodded and I'm not a vindictive person who's just going around unmodding
I'm modding
people.
us. Okay, well.
Unlike you, who have not made me a mod whatsoever.
I did. You're a mod now. It should work. If it's not working, then I'll say it's a glitch as well.
Alright,
Yeah.
we're all good.
It was a glitch. Also, I missed this chat earlier, but Alvi Chopper said Joy Fleet borrowing people like Roger borrowed Oden. So that's what's happening. Yeah.
so that's why we have a difference in opinion. Because that's what you're saying. Well, Odin's really more Roger's.
Yeah. So exactly.
Roger's shit. But I have the opinion well, your original crew, that's your actual crew. So
But they
that makes
decided to
sense.
jump ship. Yeah, it's working out nicely. And hey, actually, it's I don't know if you realized, but Randy's in here as well. So you've summoned Randy too. It's more just haki.
You
More
hear
just
that,
power.
Randy? You are not the only YouTuber who was mysteriously unmodded
Yeah.
from my stream. So we'll have to wait. Next time Braga drops in, it'll be funny if he doesn't have a wrench. But he would deserve it. Because Braga did not mod me in his chat for years. I've known him for he would deliberately not do it just because he thought it was funny.
Yeah. Maybe I should have just left you unmodded.
Oh, please. I like having the wrench.
Yeah. That's okay. So actually, I like that. I'm glad that Randy's in here as well because maybe he could help us out with sort of the next thing that I was going to go into. Because I was going to also talk about the Momotaro tale. Now that Yamato and Momonosuke are both up there with Luffy, what do we think about the Momotaro tale?
So that's interesting because one, I'm not the best person to ask about that because Japanese lore, it's not my strong suit. I usually I get it trickle down, so when other people are talking about it, that's when I learn about it. So I never knew anything about the Momotaro tale before this. But the idea of, alright, we got the monkey, we got Momonosuke, right? So he's Momotaro. We got the monkey, we got the dog. So we're missing the pheasant in theory. And I think that Oda does, he is going to complete, because it would just be strange of him not to complete that sort of trio of symbolic trio, essentially. So I was a little confused on the pheasant for a bit, and then someone recently, I think it was last stream or Twitter or something like that, someone brought up to me that, Hiyori makes sense as the pheasant, because I think she has a bird as her symbol, her hair is blue. I know that blue pheasants, we've already seen that with Aokiji, so I think that kind of completes the trio, and that makes a lot of sense, because that's the three most, in terms of Wano, the three most important characters coming out of the Wano arc are obviously Momonosuke, but then Yamato as Kaido's son, and then Hiyori as Oden's other child, right? So that just makes a lot of sense that the three companion characters, essentially, Oda's not kind of going outside of the scope of Wano-centric stuff, so he's not going to be like, okay, Marco's going to represent the pheasant just for the sake of it, or even Inuarashi is going to represent the dog just for the sake of it. So Oda's keeping it very tight to who are the three most important characters coming out of Wano itself, and that'll complete the tale. He's already got Luffy as the monkey, right? And then Momonosuke, obviously, Hiyori as the bird, and then Yamato as the dog. I don't know what it says that Hiyori is not here at the moment. We did see that silhouette a while ago. Maybe that's Hiyori, maybe it's Toki, like I know you believe, for example. So I think that makes sense to me in terms of just completing the lineup.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Marco was like maybe the initial sort of first reaction that everyone had because of his devil fruit, obviously. But the bird that you mentioned, I think it's the peafowl, which is very similar to the pheasant. And something else, because I'm actually planning on making a video about this. So whilst I was doing research, I found out that like Hiyori's Vivre card that was released, I think, a couple of months ago, said that Hiyori has actually inherited Oden's spirit and soul. And so whilst we don't typically, consider her as like a fighter, which is something that I think I've seen, I can see people saying in the chats as you were saying that, but I think Hiyori could be like a surprisingly capable fighter, could actually, hold her own. When we see the flashback of their younger days, it was like Hiyori who was a lot more spirited, she was almost like bullying Momo, being the one to like drop kick Momo and stuff. And so it would be interesting to see that, whether that actually comes into play now, if we see that Momo's been able to had the Juku no Mi to make him more physically capable, I guess Hiyori, who actually spent those 20 years, could also be quite physically capable, was under Denjiro, for example. So I like that. But because you mentioned Toki being the silhouette, I'm not gonna so I know that people like consider some parts of your agenda as like partly mean. I have the same thing going on here where people laugh at me because I say this quite a lot. But with Toki being alive, and I haven't actually said this before, but I'm just bringing it up because you did. I also think that it's not completely out of the question that Toki could also be, could fulfill that pheasant role, because Toki's name is also based on a bird, is also a crane. So we could also see that happen here as well. And the only reason why I say that is because I do really believe that, Toki, I do believe that Toki's alive, but also the silhouette, if it was Hiyori being the silhouette, I just find it, a bit odd that Oda would cloud it in, shroud it in so much mystery. I think it would be a bigger payoff, and we know that Oda likes to surprise us. Hiyori, I think, being the pheasant is a much more obvious, is a much more likely answer, but Toki would be the one that has the more impact in terms of a surprise.
I definitely agree. I think that at the very least, I agree with you that Toki is still going to be alive, just because she felt too important to just kill off back then, because we never really got to learn what she knew. There was no significance to her being the Void Sentry, for example. So we never really got to learn what she knew. There's that stuff going around about like, look out for a character if they have a scar on their ankle, for example, right? Because Toki has a scar on her ankle. So it's interesting see how Oda's going to bring her back in his story. And, the silhouette, I really couldn't, I don't know, like, if I really had to pick, I don't think I could pick between, does it make more sense for it to be Hiyori or Toki? Toki's obviously more surprising, then at the same time, if Oda's going to try and involve both of them in some way, then then how would he incorporate both of them into both coming into Onigashima at the same time if one of them's already been present? I don't know. But I agree with you that Toki is probably alive, or at least going to make a reappearance at some point.
Alright, I'm happy with that. We've got Randy saying that, he said that he's actually putting a video out about the current roof battle not being about Momotaro, and it's actually about the Shinto gods. Okay, the Shintoism makes sense based on what we got last chapter. And Amaterasu, the sun god, is Yamato. The Tsukuyomi, the moon god, is Momo, and then Susanoo is going to be the storm. Okay, so there's going to be actually, so Randy's saying that there's actually a different sort of like Japanese myths coming.
Sorry, I saw his tweet on this earlier. So, and I didn't really follow because I don't know the lore behind any of these things too well. I mean, I guess it speaks for itself a little bit. One's the moon, one's the sea storm god. So a lot of it does make sense.
Yeah, that makes sense as well. I guess like we could be seeing that now, and then we could see the Momotaro tale being fulfilled a little later. And Dawn also agreeing with us that Toki could still be alive. I just want to say hey to Dawn. And Dawn, is your sister here? Because Dawn told us last time that we were on stream that Dawn's sister is a big fan of yours, Morj. So say hi to your sister, Dawn. Because it was also Dawn's sister that apparently introduced Dawn to me. So say hi to your sister if she's in here.
Okay. Say hi to the sister.
Yeah. And okay, we're gonna answer a few super chats, and now I'm just a bit wary of time because you did say that we couldn't stay for the whole time. So we'll ask about the super chat, and then I think we'll move on to the raid as well. And hey, Roger's base is in here too. Hey, Roger. I still feel like the
Roger, what's going on?
Yeah. So we've got a big thing about modding going on. So I think we'll have to. I'll mod Roger too. I won't be like what Brago did to you, Morj. I wonder if I go onto BDA's channel then. I wonder how long it'll take me to get a mod status on his. We'll have to check it out.
He will probably mod you much faster than me because he got extra pleasure out of not modding me. Brago was once modded. Both Brago and BDA Law were both modded on my channel because I was not modded on either of his channels. Okay. So take that as you will. It's just the type of man he is.
I'll let him know. If I do go onto his channel, I'll let him know. And I'll report back to you if I do get the mod status faster. But Roger should also be modded. And Roger said that, I still feel like the pheasant will be Marco since the squad definitely needs a healer. But I'm right there with you both that Toki's for sure alive. So whoever has been telling me, every one of our Joy Fleet members who keeps laughing at me whenever I talk about Toki, we've got 3 of us here now saying that Toki is alive. And I'm pretty sure, and I think that Randy would agree with us too. I don't know. I'm pretty sure Randy's sort of on board with that idea. But the super chats that I was missing out on was Ramon, thanks so much for the super chat. Morj, raid will fail. Ushimaru is Green Bull. Jack will fight Luffy. I actually said that Jack would fight Luffy as well earlier too, so I was surprised that we didn't get to see it. JoyGirl, Toki alive. Shimotsuki's Zoro. Okay, so I think... okay, I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to read it out because it was part of the super chat. But it goes JoyGirl over Morj. But he does end it with I love you both. So Ramon obviously watches... Ramon obviously watches your channel. Maybe Ramon's another defector that I've technically borrowed or stolen from you.
The chat is just filled with defectors. This is a gummy chat. This is like the Foxy Pirates because they're just made out. It's just one giant fleet that's just made out of people being stolen from other people's fleets. And I'm just like the innocent Straw Hat Pirates who just want my crew, members back.
They'll be back. And Roger says that he had no idea that there was Morj and BDA mod beef. I'm getting the deep lore of One Piece content creators.
You know how often Roger's base is in my chat? Never.
Maybe it's because you're not. Maybe it's because you're not giving. Maybe it's because you're not giving mod statuses. Maybe it's because he's scared that his mod status will get taken away at some point if he goes onto your stream, Morj. And Randy says Marco would be a great addition up top, but he hasn't really shown that he's personally affected by everything going on, which is what you were saying, Morj, even with perfect reasoning to be, and everything up top is very personal. And I agree with that too. Like, initially I thought that, Pheasant could be Marco as well, but especially when we see that, Marco's power, like Marco's strength, he would be really, like, needed. But you know, the idea that I think he would be beyond, like, in terms of, I mean, I don't really do a lot of power scaling, but if we were talking in terms of strength, I would say he would be between, like, King and Kaido in terms of strength. So I think he wouldn't be strong enough to like go one-on-one against Kaido like a Yonko, but then he could take on like obviously both commanders. So I initially thought that too, but in terms of like everything else going on, I think, like I said, Hiyori is probably the more likely answer, but personally for me, I have to push my agenda. Like, you know, I would like to see Toki as well. Another thing that I said was also, I would this is just me with my straw hat bias, but it would also be cool if we saw Sanji and Zoro go up there as sort of like the metaphorical wings fulfilling like the bird pheasant idea, but that's, like I said, it's just the straw hat bias.
No, I mean, we're both on the same page that I definitely think that Straw Hats versus Kaido will happen at some point. Again, you know, I feel about, you know, we're in Act 3. Act 3, I don't think ends in a victory here. So I think we're getting this sort of setup on the roof. Oda likes his references. He likes the tale of Momotaro. Regardless of whether or not Momonosuke, Yamato, and Toki are the ones to defeat Kaido with Luffy, the fact remains that those three are going to be like the pivotal figures of the arc from the Wano end of things. So that's not going to change. So in terms of who actually gets to fight Kaido or who's instrumental in his defeat, I still believe that it'll be the Straw Hat Pirates versus Kaido, followed by Luffy versus Kaido, essentially. So either team effort first minus Luffy, team effort plus Luffy, that comes down to Luffy versus Kaido. That's just how I think makes sense. And because like the real backbone of the arc at the end of the day is the parallels between Oden and his scabbards and Luffy and his Straw Hats. So they have to be of pivotal importance by the end of the arc. Because the entire arc is just structured around that parallel.
Yeah. I think I agree with you. Obviously we've got similar ideas on that one. I think if I was to expand on it a little bit further, it's like the fact that we're going to be seeing Luffy fighting Kaido with different sort of team members. You know, we saw it with the Supernovas. We might see it now with like the Momotaro legend. And my take on it is that Luffy's going to be fighting Kaido with all these different people and, you know, constantly fail. And then, but it's when he's with the Straw Hats, and that's going to solidify his strength. And where they're fighting sort of like as a cohesive crew rather than just as like a collection of strong individuals. I think it's going to be a nice point that like Luffy is obviously at his strongest when he's fighting with the Straw Hats. And therefore, so I think it's going to be Straw Hats as the shadows and then Luffy as the dawn. So that's how I see it happening in terms of the thing. But in that note, then I think we'll go quickly with the super chats, and then I did want to ask you about the raid before we finish up. So we had Cigar super chat. Thanks for the super chat. My two favorite One Piece YouTubers. Hey, thanks so much. Now raid failing would be such a waste of time. Like Story has invested too much time now, and we don't even have sacrificial goats like Whitebeard and Ace to give some closure with some good debts. I'm gonna ask you to hold your thoughts on this, Morj, because we're gonna talk about the raid. And Rayo with the super chat. Thanks so much, Rayo. Do you see Momo being aged down, and how?
Okay, so both of these go together. I could just segue into my thoughts on the raid failing off of this.
Okay, cool.
One, I think that I am still of the belief if the raid fails, which I do believe will happen, but it's an if for most people. If the raid fails, I do believe that this is the arc that most supernovas will come together. I think the fact that, you know, before the Wano arc, we got to check back in on Jewelry Bonnie. She's close to Kuma. I do think we will see a lot of the supernovas making their way over to Wano before the end of this story. So I think that the simplest person who would age Momo back down would be Jewelry Bonnie, because that's just her power. That was actually probably the first thing that we were shown she's capable of doing. So again, like, to me, it's not anything crazy because from the beginning of the arc, it's just funny. A lot of people change their minds over time and then suddenly, like, for no real reason, because most people towards the beginning were like, yeah, this seems like the arc where like all of the supernovas will come together. So over time, I guess because it looks like this is the climax of the arc, people are like, well, now the supernovas can't come. To me, it's just like, well, I don't think this is the climax of the arc, therefore supernovas still can make their way over there. So again, in my mind, basically, if we get a Jewelry Bonnie over, I think Capone Beige can still come back, Yuruch can still come back, then it's not crazy to think that Momonosuke can easily be aged down. Even if Momonosuke ever runs into Jewelry Bonnie over the course of the story, doesn't have to be Wano, he can be aged back down easily. So there's a character who can she's literally built to fix this situation. So I think that that's not really an issue. As for, this is the argument I hate the most regarding people saying so much story is wasted if the raid fails. Because I hate this argument the most because I think that people are either like, how do I say this? So, no, there has been pretty much zero character arc or character progression for a single Straw Hat for the course of this arc. The course of this entire arc, there's been nothing. And you can go back through other important climactic One Piece arcs, the arcs where everybody gets their big 1v1. So Arlong Park, Alabasta, and Islabi. But Oda always structures the arcs by is having some degree, some low point that then creates a sort of sense of drama heading into the final battle where the Straw Hats are very much more motivated, very much more driven, and they have a very personal investment that they regularly voice, and it's very focused, clear goal on why they need to succeed this time, whereas things did not work out the previous time. You can go back through, again, Arlong Park, Alabasta, and Islabi. Those are the arcs that most closely mirror Wano. So, if anything, everything that people are talking about that's like wasted setup, no, this would be the setup, because there was no setup prior to this. If you look at the Straw Hats heading to Onigashima, they are party planning. If you look at the Straw Hats walking to Arlong Park, riding towards the capital of Alabasta, or heading to Enies Lobby, there's actual dramatic stakes for them. There's something very specific that they care about that is driving them, and it comes from a low place of defeat or failure or a point of like they need to succeed now, whereas they could not before. So that is just universally how Oda builds his dramatic tension over the course of the arc and how he makes it a battle worth fighting for the Straw Hats. Over the course of Act 2, and the start of Act 3, there's nothing for the Straw Hats. And not a single Straw Hat has really gone through any, like, look at Usopp, look at Frankie, look at Nami. There's nothing that they've gone through over the course of Onigashima that could be called some sort of character arc or character conflict or anything that they've had to overcome. Like, you can point to Chopper curing the Ice Onis, but that was not a character moment for him. That was just a factual accomplishment. So it's not related to any sort of storyline that was developing for him throughout Onigashima, throughout any of Wano beforehand. What we've seen so far, at least from my perspective, is either Oda is literally writing an arc that has no sort of character focus on any of the Straw Hats, aside from just checking off the boxes of winning battles, which I think he would never do, because I trust in him as a writer. Or you can look at Act 1, Act 2, and Act 1 and Act 2 is essentially the setup in terms of exposition, lore, setting the background for what the Wano arc is about, who the larger cast of characters are, setting the backstories and everything like that in place, the players, Orochi, Hiyori, etc. It did a lot of work from the Wano end of establishing who these characters are, where the scabbards are coming from, etc. But in terms of the protagonist end, it did nothing. So to me, that's where Act 3 comes in terms of kind of closing a lot of the storylines regarding probably regarding the scabbards. I don't think there'll be as much of a focus going forward if the raid fails. And to me, Act 3's purpose is essentially to shift things back towards the Straw Hats. So now the Straw Hats can experience their degree of failure, and now you can really start the character storylines for Yamato, for Momonosuke, for the Straw Hats, even for Luffy. So to me, like that's just that's just story structure, right? Beginning, middles, I mean, like that's where usually point of failure, struggle, drama, tension is built from, and then your success, right? That's just basic. And Wano's literally set up like that, so I still don't get why people are so surprised by this. Act 1 and 2, then Act 3 is supposed to be the point of failure, which is the act we're in, and then Act 4 and 5 are basically the victory acts. So I just don't get why people are so surprised, because I'm just pointing to like, this is a story structure of like, not just One Piece arcs, but just stories in general, right? Like there is a point of struggle, failure, drama, or whatever for protagonists towards the middle section of the story that they can then come back from. And that hasn't happened whatsoever in Wano. But that's the broad strokes point of it. So I don't like when people are like, well, there's so much wasted. Literally nothing was wasted, because you have to remember the Straw Hats came into this talking about the party that they're gonna have afterwards. They did nothing for the 2 weeks prior to this. So nothing is wasted on the Straw Hats end. This would be the moment that actually sets up storylines for the Straw Hats. That's my point on it. That's not going into any of like the specific plot threads that are left hanging or question marks that we still have. But I would assume that Oda would not write an arc with like zero friction from start to finish for the main characters.
Yeah, I think
and to me, this seems like the perfect arc, Act 3, for it to happen.
I think I like largely agree with you on that. I think there's a like question I'd have to ask though, is because I mean I said as well that I think Luffy will lose to Kaido again. I've said that, but I don't necessarily equate that to the raid failing. And I guess like my question would be, you know, like what would you mean by like what does it mean to you to have the raid fail? For example, like when I first started making YouTube videos, I wasn't really part of the YouTube like community. I wasn't really part of the One Piece community online. So I did know that the idea of the raid raid failing was floating around, and I actually made a video on that because I initially subscribed to that idea as well. And I did that before realizing that that you actually like spearheaded that discussion. And in that video, I said that, you know, I agree with that the raid is gonna fail. And like one of the biggest points for me as to why I thought that was one, like I like the idea of the Kabuki like the Kabuki theater structure, like the 5 acts, what it means about the 3rd act and all that. Another thing was the Hawkins timeline of having a month. The, you know, of Luffy, like of the survival rate at the end of the month, as opposed to, you know, the raid happening obviously 2 weeks into, you know, from that point. And so that is really the only like hanging thread for me. But I guess my question is like, you know, what does it mean for you for the raid to fail? Because like I said, Luffy I think will lose again, and then that's how we're going to see the Straw Hats along with Luffy fight Kaido. And for me, I think I still think that we are going to get a tragedy in Act 3. You know, if Wano is based on the Kabuki theater structure, which it like seems heavily to be, then I think it is very likely that Oda will keep playing to that. But I think for me, like what I think a tragedy could be would actually be like Onigashima would actually fall onto Flower Capital, and that is sort of the setup that's been had now since the Onigashima raid started, with Kaido announcing his big Onigashima plan. And I think that we are actually going to see Onigashima fall onto Flower Capital, and they're not actually going to be able to save that from happening in time. But maybe it won't be as catastrophic as to be expected. Maybe Momo, having failed to lift up Onigashima, could actually completely for the whole time could actually do something else to save the Wano citizens instead. But there is still going to be like a tragic element in that failure to actually save Wano from the falling Onigashima. But I don't necessarily like, maybe he'll just be able to hold up Onigashima until everyone can evacuate, for example. But it still will be a tragedy. Yeah. But then what does it mean for you for the raid to actually fail?
So to me, the idea of the raid failing, and like I don't want to do a thing where, you know, if Luffy's defeated again, but then, you know, in the span of, you know, the next 10, 20 chapters or whatever, Luffy's back up and fighting Kaido, and it's all essentially happening in the same battle. Like, I don't want it to come down to too many like technicalities or whatever. I don't think it's like hard to separate what one big event will be versus like another big event, where if like some degree of reset or cooldown will happen. So, you know, if Luffy loses to Kaido, let's say at the end of Act 3, but the battle essentially keeps going and it just swaps to, for example, like Straw Hats up against Kaido for a little bit and then Luffy comes back into the picture, I wouldn't pretend that that's the raid failing and therefore I'm correct or whatever. So personally what I view is, again, going back to Hawkins' prediction, I do think that there needs to be some time, because I do think that a lot of little character threads have finally been set over the course of this Onigashima battle. Even just Zoro, I'm surprised people don't talk about this. Zoro's, any room for Zoro's character arc, it's only just been dropped just now. Right? Zoro's a potential Shimotsuki descendant, what that means for his character, his story going forward, descendant of Ryuma. Even just touching into Conqueror's Haki for the first time against Kaido, the threads for his character arc have just been dropped, right? So to me, that's like, it's not crazy to me to think that Zoro would have to actually have a bit of a leadership arc, as some of his dialogue over the arc has indicated, coming out of a defeat from this battle, possibly with Luffy out of the picture for a little bit. So, I mean, long story short, I guess to me, raid failing would be, I do think Momonosuke is going to hold up the island from falling for a period of time. I think the act long enough, right, because it has to be successful in some sense, because he's proving something with it for his character, long enough that the people of the Flower Capital can evacuate, right, and they see him as a leader, they see the figurehead, the Kazuki family, I had a hard time remembering that word, Kazuki family has returned, etc., Faith and Momo established as, you know, potentially leading the country after this. I do think the act ends with Luffy being defeated and the island coming down. Even just small things seem to indicate that to me, with like everyone gathering on the live floor To me, that makes sense as a factor if Kaido were to defeat Luffy in front of everybody, because that's where you would really want Luffy to be, if or where you would want everyone to be as an audience to see the defeat of the hero, essentially. And that's even something Kaido himself hinted at the second time he defeated Luffy, with like, oh, they won't believe it till they actually see you lose. So yeah, I do think that the act ends with Onigashima coming down, Luffy being defeated. I do think that the alliance has to regroup in some sense, and I think we finally get some storylines for a lot of characters who seem to have just gotten their storylines rolling. So for example, Yamato, what would she learn from this instance, and how can her character develop from there to be something that's not just a character who's so like simple-minded as like, Luffy's gonna win, I'm gonna join the Straw Hats, and then we're heading out to sea together, right? Where does Momonosuke go from here, in that he's now an adult, he's earned the trust of the people of Wano, but now it's on him to actually be, you know, active in marshaling people together. What about Zoro? If Luffy's defeated, does Zoro actually get a bit of a plotline here with like Shimotsuki elements, meaning he's important to the samurai of Wano, but also just leadership elements in terms of being able to pull the Straw Hats back together? I think that there's so much that can come out of this, and that's, I do imagine, some extended period of time after this defeat in my head, where we get to see a lot of like actual character stuff in the play out. And that's also why I think that like Marines coming over as a solid distraction for Kaido and Big Mom, so that they don't just wipe everybody out, makes sense. It did seem like the Marines coming over was set up at the end of Act 2. If you remember like the little in-between chapters between Act 2 and Act 3, it did seem like that was set up. CP0 is here, so easy to report out what's happening in Wano. So I do think that there's a good opportunity for a diversion to happen, where a lot of storylines can kind of play out, and then a bit of a regroup to defeat the Kaido Big Mom alliance at the end of it. So that's how I envision it. I know that makes it for a much longer storyline, but I also think Wano is clearly like, people didn't even believe Wano was going to be longer than Dressrosa, so look at where we're at now. I think that Wano is just going to be a generally very long storyline. It's the largest storyline we've ever had built up, had the most build up over time to it ever, so I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being 200 chapters or something like that, maybe more.
Yeah, I think I agree with you as well. I never really, like, I didn't particularly ever, like, find fault with the idea that it would, like, drag on too long, or that anything would be wasted. I never saw it from that line as well. I quite like the idea of, like, what you're saying about the Marines coming. I really think that Vegapunk, if the Marines are coming, I really think that we're going to see Vegapunk coming to Wano as well. A lot of Vegapunk's storyline, I think, has been connected to Wano, has been connected to Momonosuke. And I think a really cool moment that we could see is, you know, one of the first scenes that we saw of Momo was him staring at the devil fruit, at Vegapunk's experiment, staring at it. And I think what we could have is actually the reverse, and now Vegapunk, who's actually always considered that devil fruit a failure, or it was known as a failure, whether he himself thought it was a failure or not, but we could actually see Vegapunk now staring at Momonosuke, at his successful devil fruit, like in action. And so we're going to see, like, you know, there's two sides of the same coin. You know, there's witnessing, I guess, staring at each other. It could be a nice, I think, like, play there. So I like the idea of, like, the Marines coming in. And that's what I was going to say as well. Though I wasn't necessarily thinking that it will have to be in between the raid, Luffy's defeat, and then the final success. I was thinking maybe it would happen maybe the other way around. So I still, which is, I guess, sort of like the difference. That way we could still have Hawkins play out, Hawkins' prophecy playing out about, you know, Luffy's survival rate at the end of the arc, at the end of the, maybe at the end where a bigger threat comes, or another threat comes aboard, similar to like what happened in like the end of like Water 7 and Enies Lobby. Like, you know, the enemies were defeated and then Garp showed up with the Marines, but this time, rather than being sort of like a friendlier foe, it's actually going to be a real threat. Because I don't know how familiar you are with this, but did you see the director's comments during, I don't know if Roger's base is still here actually. Roger, actually it's, I should have asked this earlier when Roger was here, but Roger was in a Funimation watch party few months ago now, and that watch party also included like some interviews with some of the voice actors and also the director. And he said, I don't know if it was just a translation issue, I don't know if it was just a bit unclear, but it seemed like he was saying that there could be a final villain after Kaido. So have you?
I don't know about that. That would be kind of crazy to me, just because so much Kaido's had so much build-up. I would just prefer, this is like personal preference, not whether or not I think it'll happen. Preference is, I think Kaido's had enough focus. I think he's becoming a really, really great character. I'm liking Kaido more and more every chapter that we get more dialogue. So I hope that Kaido's not supplanted by someone we don't really expect whatsoever coming out of the blue.
I mean, I agree with you. I like the idea of like Kaido being the final villain, closing that arc. But I think maybe we could have another threat that comes to catapult the next arc, maybe, or like future developments for following Wano. And I guess
that happens a lot.
Yeah.
At the end of arcs.
Just to finish up with a few more super chats. Anime Nakama, thanks so much for the super chat. I just want to say I love both of your analysis. Thank you. It's very nice. And Ramon had a question, I think, for you, Morj. Thanks, Ramon. Zoro will be out soon because of the after effect of the medicine after effect. How does this fit with the raid falling, in your opinion, Morj? Just before you answer that, I guess I was actually going to say, with Zoro, when you were talking about like Kaido and Zoro having like a bit of a leadership moment, I also wanted to say now with like the hints dropped about Zoro being potentially a Shimotsuki, I think we could be getting another moment where I think Kaido needs to see more of Zoro for Kaido also to be reminded of Mr. Nobody, seeing as we know that Mr. Nobody went to, oppose Kaido again. So I think we could be getting another Kaido and Zoro moment. I also don't know, I guess it's unclear when those after effects are supposed to be hitting in, so we don't actually know when that medicine is supposed to kick in for Zoro. But anyways, that was a question directed to you, Morj, so I'll ask for your opinion.
I'm gonna make this my last question, if that's okay, just because time-wise.
Yeah.
So I think with Zoro, because I definitely believe that obviously Zoro will be, severely debilitated after this or whatever, right? But assuming that we're going off of, in my mind, Hawkins' prediction of a month-long storyline, that doesn't really matter, because all that would matter is that Zoro is able to fight 2 weeks down the road. So, for example, if we compared it to something like the nothing happened moment, I'm sure however bad of a shape Zoro's in, Oda's gonna write it the same way he's written the nothing happened moment or the Mihawk duel result. Both times it was written as though, okay, Zoro's he's on the brink of death. He's, this is like absolutely devastating, life-threatening injury. And then Oda has him walking around the next arc, just fighting, right? And I think the whole Arlong arc, the Baratie to Arlong Park, I think that all happened basically the same day, at least it seemed like, or next day. Same with difference between Thriller Bark to Sabaody Archipelago. Zoro was fighting a couple days later, and both times, the point was made that Zoro is severely handicapped, but the character is Zoro, so, he's not going to be fighting Kaido again 2 days from now. If we just go past by the way that Oda has written Zoro's life-threatening injuries in the past, Oda's going to play it up. Zoro will be severely injured following this battle, but he'll be 100% fine 2 weeks down the road. That's just the way these things tend to go. Luffy's fine. Like, give a character a couple days in One Piece, a few days in One Piece, and they'll be 90%, 80% recovered from a life-threatening injury.
Drink some milk.
And there's never been a case in One Piece where like 2 weeks later a character is still affected by some old injury. It's like you eat meat, you sleep a little bit, and then they're fine.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're definitely going to see some like Zoro doing some badass thing, and then he's going to surpass like the normal like limitations for humans again. Sleep it off, drink some milk.
Yeah.
He'll be fine.
Yeah.
But okay. Well, that was it for the super chats, and I think we are, over an hour now. So I just wanted to say a big thank you, and I wanted to see if there were any closing things that you wanted to say about what you're expecting for Wano, anything that, we've talked a lot about your agenda, and I think it seems like both of our agendas are like match up at a lot of points. So I'm very, I was very keen to, very excited to hear that.
So I think I've said enough for my agendas for the moment. Go subscribe, and then you all can hear more of my agenda basically going forward, right? So go subscribe. That's the easiest way. So I'll plug myself, and I think on that I do have to go. But yeah, thanks a lot for having me. This was a a good way to get some of my thoughts out, because I do need to do another video on the raid failing so that people know I still believe it, etc. before it happens, which I think will happen in the next 10 chapters or so, basically. So yeah, that's it. Thanks a lot for having me, and I think, yeah, let's just hope that some of these agendas play out.
Yeah.
So talk to you guys later.
For sure. Thanks so much, Morj. Alright, I think Mr. Morj left. I was actually gonna and let me just make sure. Is it okay, there's two, okay, wait. There's two of me now. Give me a second. I didn't realize I was actually gonna end the stream with Mr. Morj leaving as well, so everyone, if you guys haven't already subscribed to Mr. Morj, I don't know what you guys are doing, make sure to subscribe already. I've already subscribed, so make sure you guys do too. Let me just, now you guys get double the joy. So funny. Let me just, but, okay, well, thanks everyone for coming in. I didn't realize that he was gonna leave us like that. I was gonna end the stream with him. But, everyone, thanks for coming in. Yeah, we had a twin war. Well, he dipped. Yeah, he did. He lasted. He said that he was going to cap it to an hour, and we are over that hour. So big thanks to Mr. Morj. I'll say a big thank you to him as well. I'm not too sure if Roger's still here, but I saw Randy left. Thanks to Roger and Randy for coming in, and thanks to you guys as well. Teach, you missed the stream. Well, luckily it was a short and sweet one. So Levi unfortunately wasn't able to come back in either. Sekaiichi, yep, like the stream. Like Sekaiichi, and I saw Irvin and Chin was saying, make sure to like this stream. I think Irvin, I saw you said it was going to be 200 likes soon, so I don't know if we've already hit that number yet, but and yeah, the stream ended in failure. The stream ended with double JoyGirl. Does that constitute a failure? Yeah, it's at 216 now. Nice. No, Chin, no, not cheap. It's very nice of him. Apparently he was just moving. We had the time. I didn't realize that he was in a different time zone now, so it's very kind of him, very nice of him to make time. And everyone make sure to watch, to watch out for his video. I'm really excited to see that one, the one that he was saying at the beginning of our stream about Nami, and about Nami, having like the most time, having the most, I guess, like panel time. And he says he's got 3 coming out. Apparently he's recording 3 videos today, so that sounds like a lot of fun. And thank you to all of our new subscribers who joined during the stream. I didn't have time to read out everyone just because I did know that Morj was on a limited time frame, but thanks so much for joining the Joy Fleet. To all of you defectors who joined the Joy Fleet a long time ago, I appreciate you guys as well immensely. And let's see, were there any questions? I don't think there were any questions that I missed, but and hey, thanks Walmau, thanks for the stream, Boywell, great collab, and lots of guests came. Yes, hope everyone else enjoyed it as well. Yes, I enjoyed it immensely. I hope everyone else did too. And I think that's Ryo showing the East Blue. I think he's repping the East Blue as East Blue captain. I do have to remind you guys, so for everyone who missed out at the beginning of the stream, for those of you who are part of our Joy Fleet Discord server, if you aren't, make sure to go join already. But those of you who are our artwork competition theme for this week, as set by Mr. Morj, is to draw essentially Luffy losing to Kaido and maybe people reacting to it from the background. I'm also going to have to say that it seems like he wants to use it maybe as a potential thumbnail or as a potential maybe artworks in his own video. And I guess this is a good time to tell you guys like sort of the aspect ratio of your drawings. It's not something that I've ever mentioned for us because I sort of just play around with it in my videos. But if you did want it, if you did want it to get into Mr. Morj's channel, I suppose, I just wanted to tell you guys that I think the aspect ratio for thumbnails is 1280 by 720 pixels, and if you were wanting to make it into a video, I think 1280 for 720 would be fine for videos as well. But if you really wanted to fit with what I use for like a 1080 video, I think it might be 1920 to 1080 for it to be full screen. So that might be just something that you guys want to think about as well. But everyone, I'm looking forward to seeing you guys all draw the raid failing for Mr. Morj, or in my case, just Luffy losing before he fights with the Straw Hats. Similar agenda, not quite the same, but it could work for both of our channels. And Yamil, yeah, you sorry we didn't. Yeah, so it was a bit of a shorter stream than usual. Arrived late, but thanks for coming in. You can watch it on replay. It'll be an easier watch if it's maybe if it's shorter. And Demigod, this is a raid ending orgy, no pushback at all. Well, I mean, I I've said during the stream as well, I initially subscribed to the idea. Now I don't necessarily think that the raid will fail as such. The only sort of vestige of hope, or not hope, but thought that I had about the raid possibly failing was maybe, I didn't get to get a chance to say this to Mr. Morj, but maybe I thought that the Flying Six, that what we'll see from them is we'll actually see like Awaken, Zoe and Devil Fruits, where they actually all rise up at the same time again, and that could be what happens, like, you know, with a complete defeat for the Alliance. But the little text box that we got, you know, the narrator's dialogue box that said that the Tobiroppo are out, that makes me think that they actually are out, that they're not coming back. And so that was sort of the last hit for me that thinks, okay, the raid's not going to fail. But like I said, I don't think that this necessarily means that this next fight that we see means Luffy and the Alliance's success. I do think that Luffy's going to lose again. We're going to see the Straw Hats win. Whether that means the raid will fail, I don't know. I don't technically think so, but we'll see. And yes, thanks Formel for linking the Discord. I will make sure to pin that so you guys can all join the Joy Fleet server if you guys haven't already. And Teach, you say that you don't think Ulti is done, but I don't know. I think that dialogue box does make me think that that the Tobiroppo are out at this point. Irvin says join East Blue, and look, I can't say. I don't know. So Irvin's repping the East Blue. We've got Taka here, who's the captain of the West Blue. Our other mods aren't with us today, but so we've got heavy East Blue representation. But also join for our games night. We have a games night, a monthly games night. We're going to be probably hosting it in the next one's going to be in October, probably in the next break week. And Fred, sorry, my bad, Fred. Yes, you're here as well. We've got the North Blue too. We've got North Blue being represented as well. But okay, thanks everyone for joining in. It was a nice short and sweet discussion. And also, I should also say that because we had this Let's Talk Wano episode in lieu of our usual chapter discussion streams, I am planning on doing another stream next week, probably the same time as our usual chapter discussion streams. But the consensus from our reaction stream was that people wanted to do a watch party, so I think we're going to do a watch party together on Twitch. So make sure to follow my Twitch if you haven't already, and I'll make an announcement so that we can decide on a movie to watch together. But I look forward to seeing you there as well. But yeah, thanks so much for joining us. I had a lovely time. I had really appreciated Mr. Morj coming on. Taka, we're gonna do a watch party of one of the One Piece movies. We'll do a poll. I'll set up a poll very soon. But yeah, and everyone, make sure to subscribe to Mr. Morj. Make sure to subscribe to JoyGirl if you haven't already. And all right, thanks so much. I'll see you guys next time. I'll see you guys again soon. Bye.